Hello, assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to read part number 2 of chapter number 1 by the novel The Mayor of Casterbridge, written by the author Thomas Hardy. So, for my part, I don't see why men who have got wives and don't want shouldn't get rid of as these gypsy fellows do their old horses, said the man in the tent. Why shouldn't they put up and sell by auction to men who are in need of such articles? Hey, why? Begad, I had sell mine this time if anybody would buy her. There is them that would do that, some of the guests replied, looking at the woman, who was by no means ill favored. True, said a smoking gentleman, whose coat had the fine polish about the collar, elbow seams, and shoulder blades that long continued friction with grimy surface will produce, and which is usually more desired on furniture than on clothes. From his appearance, he had possibly been in former time groom or coachman to some neighboring country fellow. I have had my breedings in as good circles, I may say, as any man, he added, and I know true cultivation or nobody do, and I can declare she is guarded in the bone, mind, yea, I say as much as any female in the fair, and though it may want a little bringing out. Then, crossing his legs, he resumed his pipe with a nicely adjusted gaze at a point in the air. The fuddled young husband stared for a few seconds at his unexpected praise of his wife, half in doubt of the wisdom of his own attitude towards the possessor of such qualities, but he speedily lapsed into his former conviction and said harshly, well, then now is your chance. I am open to an offer for this gem, O creation. She turned to her husband and murmured, Michael, you have talked this nonsense in public places before. A joke is a joke. But you may make it once too often mind. I know I have said it before. I meant it. All I want is a buyer. At the moment, a swallow, one among the last of the season, which had by chance found its way through an opening into the upper part of the tent, flew to and fro in quick curves about their heads, causing all eyes to follow it absently. In watching the bird till it made its escape, the assembled company neglected to respond to the workman's offer, and the subject dropped. But a quarter of an hour later, the man, who had gone on lacing his furmity more and more heavily, though he was either so strong headed or such an intrepid topper that he still appeared fairly sober, recurred to the old strain as in a musical fantasy the instrument fetches up the original theme. Here I am waiting to know about this offer of mine. The woman is no good to me. Who will have her? The company had by this time decidedly degenerated, and the renewed inquiry was received with a laugh of appreciation. The woman whispered she was imploring and anxious. Come, come, it is getting dark, and this nonsense won't do. If you don't come along, I shall go without you. Come. She waited and waited, yet he did not move. In 10 minutes, the man broke in upon the desultory conversation of the furmity drinkers with, I asked this question, and nobody answered to it. Will any Jack Rag or Tom Straw among you buy my goods? The woman's manner changed, and her face assumed the grim shape and color of which mention has been made. Mike, Mike, said she, this is getting serious. Oh, too serious. Will anybody buy her? Said the man. I wish somebody would, said she firmly. Her present honor is not at all to be her liking, nor you to mine, said he. So we are agreed about that. The girl, if she wants to, and go her ways, I will take my tools and go my ways. It is simple and scripture history. Now then, stand up, Susan, and show yourself. Don't, Michael, whispered a buxom staylace dealer in the voluminous petticoats who sat near the woman. Your good man don't know what he's saying. The woman, however, did stand up. Now, who is the auctioneer? Cried the haste chooser. I be, promptly answered a short man with a nose resembling a copper knob, a damp voice, and eyes like buttonholes. Who will make an offer for this lady? The woman looked on the ground as if she maintained her position by a supreme effort of will. 5 shillings, said someone, at which there was a laugh. No insult, said the husband. Who will say a guinea? Nobody answered, and the female dealer in staylaces interposed. Behave yourself, moral good man, for heaven's love. Ah, what a cruelty is the poor soul married to! Bed and board is dear at some figures. Upon my wing it is. Set it high, auctioneer, said the trooper. 2 guineas, said the auctioneer, and no one replied. If they don't take her for that in 10 seconds, they will have to give more, said the husband. Very well. Now, auctioneer, add another. 3 guineas. Going for 3 guineas, said the Reume man. No bid, said the husband. Good Lord, why she's cost me 50 times the money if penny go on. 4 guineas, cried the auctioneer. I will tell what. I won't sell her for less than 5, said the husband, bringing down his fist so that the basins danced. I will sell her for 5 guineas to any man that will pay me the money and treat her well, and he shall have her forever and never hear aught of me. But she should not go for less. Now then, 5 guineas, and she's yours. Susan, you agree? She bowed her head with absolute indifference. 5 guineas, said the auctioneer, or she will be withdrawn. Do anybody give it? The last time. Yes or no? Yes, said a loud voice from the doorway. All eyes were turned. Standing in the triangular opening which formed the door of the tent was a sailor, who, unobserved by the rest, had arrived there within the last 2 or 3 minutes. A dead silence followed his affirmation. You say you do? Asked the husband, staring at him. I say so, replied the sailor. Saying is one thing and paying is another. Where is the money? The sailor hesitated a moment, looked anew at the woman, came in, unfolded 5 crisp pieces of paper, and threw them down upon the tablecloth. They were Bank of England notes for £5. Upon the face of this, he chinked down the shillings severally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sight of real money in full amount is in answer to a challenge for the same till then deemed slightly hypothetical, had a great effect upon the spectators. Their eyes became riveted upon the faces of the chief actors and then upon the notes as they lay weighted by the shillings on the table. Up to this moment, it could not positively have been asserted that the man, in spite of his tantalizing declaration, was really in earnest. The spectators had indeed taken the proceedings with throughout as a piece of mirthful irony carried to extremes, and had assumed that, being out of work, he was, as a consequence, out of temper with the world and society and his nearest kin. But with the demand and response of real cash, the jovial frivolity of the scene departed. A lurid colour seemed to fill the tent, and change the aspect of all therein. The mirth wrinkles left the listeners' faces, and they waited with parting lips. Now, said the woman, breaking the silence so that her low, dry voice sounded quite loud, before you go further, Michael, listen to me. If you touch that money, I and this girl go with the man. Mind, it is a joke no longer. A joke? Of course it is not a joke, shouted her husband, his resentment rising at her suggestion. I take the money, the sailor takes you. That is the plain enough. It has been done elsewhere, and why not here? It is quite on the understanding that the young woman is willing, said the sailor blandly. I wouldn't hurt her feelings for the world. Faith or I said her husband. But she is willing, provided she can have the child. She said so only the other day when I talked of it. That your spear, said the sailor to her. I do, she said after glancing at her husband's face and seeing no repentance there. Very well. She shall have the child and the bargain's complete, said the Chooser. He took the sailor's notes and deliberately folded them and put them with the shillings in a high remote pocket with an air of finality. The sailor looked at the woman and smiled. Come along, he said kindly. The little one, too. The more the merrier. She paused for an instant with a close glance at him. Then, dropping her eyes again and saying nothing, she took up the child and followed him as he made towards the door. On reaching it, she turned and pulled off her wedding ring, flung it through the booth in the hairdresser's face. Mike, she said, I have lived with three a couple of years and had nothing but temper. Now I am no more to see. I will try my luck elsewhere. It will be better for me and Elizabeth Jane both. So goodbye. Seizing the sailor's arm with her right hand and mounting the little girl on her left, she went out of the tent sobbing bitterly. A stolid look of concern filled the husband's face, as if after all he had not quite anticipated this ending, and some of the guests laughed. Is she gone? He said. Faith, she is gone, clean enough, said some rustics near the door. He rose and talked to the entrance with a careful tread of one conscious of his alcoholic load. Some others followed and they stood looking into the twilight. The difference between the peacefulness of interior nature and the willful hostilities of mankind was very apparent at this place. In contrast with the harshness of the act just ended within the tent was the sight of several horses crossing their necks and rubbing each other lovingly as they waited in patience to be harnessed for the home yard journey. Outside the fair, in the valleys and woods, all was quiet. The sun had recently set, and the west heaven was hung with rosy cloud, which seems permanent yet slowly change. To watch it was like looking at some grand feat of strategy from a darkened auditorium. In presence of this scene after the other, there was a natural instinct to abjure man as a blot of an otherwise kindly universe. Still, it was remembered that all terrestrial conditions were intermittent, and that mankind might some night be innocently sleep when the quiet objects were ringing loud. Where do sailors live? Asked a spectator when they had vainly gazed round. God knows that, replied the man who had been seeing high life. He is without doubt a stranger here. He came in about 5 minutes ago, said the furmity woman, joining the rest with her hands on her hips, and then a step back, and then a looked in again. I am not a penny the better for him. Serves the husband well be right, said the stylist window, a comely, respectable body like her. What can a man want more? I glory in the woman's spirit. I had done it myself. Odd scent, if a husband had behaved so to me, I had go and might call and call till his key corn was raw. But I had never come back, no, not till the great triumphant, would I? Well, the woman will be better off, said another of a more deliberate turn. For seafaring natures be very good shelter for shorn lambs, and the men do seem to have plenty of money, which is what she is not being used to lately by all showings. Mark me, I will not go after her, said the trusser, returning doggedly to his seat. Let her go. If she is up to such vagaries, she must suffer for 'em. She had no business to take the maid. It is my maid, and if it were the doing again, she wouldn't have her. Perhaps from some little sense of having countenanced an indefensible proceeding, perhaps because it was late. The customers thinned away from the tent shortly after this episode. The man stretched his elbows forward on the table, leaned his face upon his arms, and soon began to snore. The furmity seller decided to close for the night, and after seeing the rum bottles, milk, corn, raisins, etc., that remained on head loaded into the cart, came to where the man reclined. He shook him, she shook him, but could not wake him. As the tent was not to be struck that night, the fear continuing for 2 or 3 days, she decided to let the sleeper, who was obviously no tramp, staying where he was and his basket with him, extinguishing the last candle and lowering the flap of the tent, she felt it and drove away.